Magic the Gathering's future may be leaning more and more into other IPs, but Foundations is a love letter to its roots, packed with nods and reprints of iconic cards, locations, and pivotal moments. It brings everything great about Magic's expansive history all into one set. For newcomers and seasoned players alike, some of these iconic legendary characters and creatures may be complete unknowns, leaving you scratching your head as to why they deserve that legendary title anyway. That's why in this video I will be breaking down who they are and why they matter, minus the obvious faces like Jace, Chandra, and Kellen, as these are the types of characters who have shaped the story for a while now, and I want to spend this time showcasing some of those lesser known figures in the multiverse. So grab a seat and get comfortable, this is going to be a long one. Alesha, the legendary Khan of Tarkir's Mardu horde, is a warrior of unrelenting perseverance in the face of impossible odds. Rising to the mantle of Khan at just 19, she led with an unwavering courage that inspired those around her, a trait immortalized when she struck down a dragon with a single blow, earning her the title, She Who Smiles at Death. Alesha also holds a special place in Magic's history as its first trans character, her chosen name honoring her grandmother whose strength and wisdom inspired her. While no one knows what plane Arahbo is from or much at all about this great beast, it's said that every cat in the multiverse can trace their lineage eventually back to this one being. Some even consider this cat a deity, one whose call can be heard in the hearts of all his feline descendants. Arcanis is a mysterious figure, rare in the game for only containing a creature class and no creature race, perhaps alluding to the idea that they are a being of pure magic. By this very nature, not a lot is known about who Arcanis is or what their intentions are, and interestingly enough, we weren't first introduced to this character in some magnificent display, but rather we first met Arcanis as a pit fighter in the Grand Colosseum on the plain of Otaria. I guess even magical beings need a little coin. Aurelia is a towering angel whose crimson hair flows like fire and whose worn armor speaks of countless battles. Her two vast white feathered wings and musical voice belie a warrior's spirit that leads not from command posts but from the front lines. Aurelia became the leader of the Boros Legion after the tragedy of the Sadex massacre, but under her command, Aurelia molded the Legion around the ideals of action and compassion, protecting the vulnerable and challenging the rigid laws of the Azorius. Through the War of the Spark and the Phyrexian invasion, she fought fiercely, bearing the weight of the countless lives claimed by these great wars. Yet Aurelia endured, her unyielding resolve guiding Ravnica through fragile peace and reconstruction. When assassinations and unrest threatened her city during the events of murders at Karlov Manor, she was ready to go to war with the Rakdos, but was stopped once the true mastermind of the chaos was found. While often seen as hard-headed, Aurelia has a good heart stoked by the fires of justice. Ayli, once the high priest of the eternal pilgrims, hails from the wild and unpredictable plain of Zendikar. She and her brother Radric lived as nomads in their youth, guiding the lost under the service of the core wind goddess Kamsa. But Ayli's sharp mind and cunning instincts soon overshadowed her brother's, creating a rift that led him into peril on Jwar Island, and her into the zealous embrace of the Eternal Pilgrims. During the Eldrazi crisis, Ayli rescued Jace Beleren and Jori En from a swarm of Eldrazi spawn, only to deliver them to her people, who sought to sacrifice them to Ulamog, the god they worshipped. The pair escaped, and with the defeat of the Eldrazi Titans, Ayli was left disillusioned and searching for a new purpose in a world without her dark faith. Balmor, captain of the guard on New Argive, an isle on Dominaria, is as bold as he is brilliant, commanding the elite Firefeathers battlemage regiment with precision and daring. Trained in the renowned Tolarian academies, he mastered both the art of battle magic and the subtleties of strategy, which he now wields to defend the city he proudly calls home, ever ready to meet the danger head-on. Drakuseth is a towering Shivan dragon wreathed in molten red scales, and commands both awe and terror across the volcanic expanse of Shiv. Legends whisper of its lineage tracing back to the elder dragon Vivectus Asmadi, and Drakuseth embodies that heritage with raw power, razor-sharp intellect, and a mastery of destructive magic. When Nissa Ravain first set foot on the serene, sunlit plain of Lorwyn, she could feel the pulse of the land beneath her feet, but it was laced with a deep, impending pain. It was in this moment she was found by Dwynen's pack of elves. The elves took her because of her otherworldly beauty, and though they recognized her as an outsider, they welcomed her into their hunt for so-called eye blights. At first, Nissa followed the pack through Lorwyn's idyllic glades and groves, the thrill of the chase filling her veins. But as the hunt stretched on, unease turned to horror. The prey they sought weren't monsters, but innocent boggarts, creatures of mischief, not malice. When Nissa confronted Dwynen and her elves, their response revealed the true nature of the elves of Lorwyn, as they dismissed her protest, rationalizing their hatred, bound by their rigid views of purity and beauty. Elenda, once a mortal warrior nun, was charged with guarding the immortal sun in Torazon's mountains. Her monastery fell to the marauder Pedron the Wicked, but before Elenda could exact vengeance, a winged beast carried the immortal sun westward. Driven by duty, she pursued it, embracing dark magic to become immortal and continue her search. Centuries later, Elenda returned to Torazon, sharing her right of immortality with noble followers like Mavrin Fane, urging humility and sacrifice. She disappeared again, entering an enchanted sleep on Orazca to safeguard the immortal sun. When she finally returned to her people, Elenda was appalled by the Legion of Dusk's cruelty in her absence. Rejecting their obsession with conquest, she preached humility as the true path to salvation, not power over others. During New Phyrexia's invasion, Elenda defended Ixalan alongside Azor, standing firm as a beacon of devotion and restraint. Etali, a colossal elder dinosaur, was a living storm given form, manifestation of the untamed fury of red mana. Awakened when the Golden City emerged from its slumber, he was a force of nature and vast beyond imagination. But during New Phyrexia's invasion, Etali fell to completion, his lungs twisted into engines spewing thunder and lightning, his body bleeding dark oil as his metal spine pulsed with crimson energy. In the climactic defense of Orazca, he clashed with his fellow elder dinosaurs, his dorsal sail torn by Zetalpa's talons before Zakama delivered the killing blow, ripping off his arm and head, a tragic loss of one of Ixalan's ancient defenders. Fynn, leader of the Kana clan, is a living legend in Bredegard, known far and wide as the only human to have ever wounded the Cosmos Serpent. During the battle, when he pierced the beast, its venomous blood seeped into his body, transforming Finn's blood into a deadly toxin. As proof of his impossible feat, Fynn wields a shield forged from a single scale of the mighty serpent. When Tybalt's Doomscar unleashed chaos across his home plane of Kaldheim, Fynn stood with Bredegard's leader to defend their home. Years later, during the Phyrexian invasion, Fynn stood head-to-head with a completed Koma, finishing what he started those years ago. Giada's story began in the orphan halls of Mezio. Discovered by the Cabaretti, she became their secret weapon, with the ability to conjure pure halo from even the filthiest depths of New Capenna. As her magic fueled their opulent parties and tipped the balance of power, she was both a symbol of hope and a threat to the city's fragile order. But Giada's journey was not confined to Cabaretti halls. During the crescendo, she was saved from the adversary by Elspeth Tyrael, only to sacrifice herself in a cathedral to become Halo itself. This act not only empowered Elspeth with the radiant blade Luxior, but also paved the way for the return of the city's angels. When Atrax's invasion loomed, Giada returned, not as a girl she once was, but as a fully formed angel. After the city's salvation, Giada departed New Capenna, joining her angelic kin to spread hope across the multiverse. Jazal Goldmane, the elder brother of Ajani, was more than just the Ka of his Naya Leonin tribe. He was a beacon of wisdom and unity in a fractured world. a leader with a deep love for his people and one who was loved back by them in equal measure. Jazal worked tirelessly alongside Ajani to bring peace and prosperity to their pride, but his vision of reconciliation made him a target, and during the festival of Marasi, he was murdered by the pride's shaman Zaliki. His death shattered Ajani's world, sending him on a quest for vengeance that spanned the multiverse. To this day, Ajani carries a blade forged from a combination of his and Jazal's weapon, a constant reminder of his brother's ideals. Kyora's story is a swirling tide of ambition and loss. Born on Zendikar, her spark ignited during a moment of desperation, saving her from a monstrous serpent but leaving behind her sister, Turi, a loss that would haunt her for the rest of her life, and one she vowed would never happen again, for if only she were strong enough that day for the both of them. Kiora idolized the colossal sea creatures of the deep, seeing in them a strength that she envied, and this reverence shaped her as she roamed the multiverse, gathering sea creatures to add to her armies, which she could summon from any plane. On Theros, she crossed paths with Thassa, and managed to steal the sea god's bident after a brutal fight. But when Zendikar was overrun by Eldrazi, Kyora's boldness turned to hubris, as she believed she now had the power to take on these gods of the blind eternities. But her armies of leviathans and krakens could not withstand the might of both Ulamog and Kozilek, and she faced the painful truth of her limits as she witnessed her greatest ally, Lorthos, be torn apart. Though she fought alongside the Gatewatch to end the Eldrazi, her fear in the final moments almost unraveled their plan. After their victory, burdened by failure and pride, Kiora drifted once more, forever chasing the strength she revered but could never fully grasp. Koma, the Cosmos Serpent, is a source of both reverence and calamity on Kaldheim, the eldest of the Cosmos monsters. Koma's true size remains a mystery, as he can fragment into countless segments, roaming the realms, or at least he once could. Koma's exile by the Skadi gods has left the world tree destabilized. During the storyline on Kaldheim, Koma was unleashed by Tybalt, spreading chaos across the realms before being repelled by Nico Eris and the Valkyries. When the Phyrexians invaded years later, the Cosmos Serpent was not immune to the horrors of the Phyrexians. Completed during the invasion, he met his end at the hand of his old rival, Fynn, a tragic conclusion to a beast once considered a god. Krenko's rise from scrappy street thug to a cunning mob boss with aristocratic aspirations is a tale of schemes, betrayals, and an uncanny knack for slipping through the cracks. Armed with a magical shiv and a penchant for turning mayhem into opportunity, he escaped arrests, incited prison riots, and outmaneuvered rivals to rebuild his criminal empire. During Nico Bolas's and New Phyrexia's invasions, Krenko profited shamelessly from the chaos, even as he posed as a defender of Ravnica. Now mingling with Ravnica's elites, he dreams of creating a goblin aristocracy, untouchable and unstoppable. Yet his ambitions paint a target on his back. Paranoia grips him after a series of high-profile murders at Karlov Manor, culminating in an attempt on his life. Though Krenko survived and helped uncover a conspiracy by one of the Tristani Dryads, his crimes caught up to him. Aurelia's arrest may finally put the infamous mob boss behind bars. That or set the stage for his next big escape. Kykar, Wind's Fury, is a name carried by whispers rather than stories. His origins unknown, but his presence unforgettable. This crane-aven wizard is a commanding figure with white plumage edged in black, his robes flowing with the same natural grace as he carries the rest of his body. Lathlas claims her place as a queen among dragons. Every story told and retold about her centers around her unmatched ferocity and cruelty. One such tale speaks of how she keeps the heart of the old dragon queen sealed within a jewel, a smoldering relic that serves as both a trophy and a warning that no other ruler, no matter how powerful, is beyond her reach. Lathril is a figure of elven legend on Kaldheim, a leader whose brilliance in both strategy and combat defined an era before the elves were divided into shadow and wood. Tales of her fearlessly leading her forces into battle still echo in elven lore. After a confrontation with the cosmos monster Eidermaw, Lathril ascended to godhood, but this divinity came at a cost, the loss of her sight. As a god, she would later save Kit, a wolf pup child of Seraph. In gratitude, the great wolf granted Lathril's people the ability to communicate with beasts. Some elves now pray to Lathril's spirit, believed to dwell within the Jaspera trees, hoping she will one day return to reunite her people and restore their ancient glory. Lyndon Kenrith, the Queen of Ardenvale on the plain of Eldraine, was a leader with an unwavering devotion to her people. Chosen by the questing beasts as a candidate for the High Quest, she wielded a blessed sword and adventured alongside Elgenis Kenrith, her future husband. Yet their path was not without hardship. Sometime into their romance, Elgenis fell under a witch's spell, fathering Rowan and Will, whom the witch killed after birth, as the witch sought to use their essence for her blood magic. Even though the children weren't hers, Lyndon surrendered the power of her sword to save them, taking the children as her own. But since she returned before completing the High Quest, rumors floated among the halls about her children and her ascension to queenhood. Despite the dark shadows that followed her, Lyndon remained a steadfast queen. When Oko the trickster turned Elgenis into a stag during the wild hunt, Lyndon stood ready to act. To save him, she used the last of the king's sword's magic to return him to life. But this was not the end of her hardships, as years later her world would be invaded by the Phyrexians. In the face of such a horrifying threat, Lyndon and Elgenis led the defense of Castle Ardenvale. But this time, there was no magic to save them, and both would ultimately perish. Even in death, she remains a symbol of enduring love, sacrifice, and the enduring spirit of Eldraine. Lut's story unfolds over small tidbits of information, snippets and stories, and bits of flavor text. What we know is that the creature was sealed within Mag Torana, on Thunder Junction 9 years before we went there ourselves. There he remained hidden until Jace Beleren, working under Tezzeret's orders, uncovered the vault, sent to investigate something even Nicol Bolas feared. Jace sensed a quiet, childlike mind locked deep within, but could not gain entry. Years later, after the War of the Spark, Jace sought Tamio's knowledge and learned of Lut's nature and the ancient magic binding him. When Jace, disguised as Ashiok, returned to free Lut, the critter would soon be swept into a chain of events, beginning with him joining Vraska and Jace on Bloomburrow, then eventually in him being captured on Duskmorn by the demon Valgavoth. What happened on those plains and why he was on Duskmorn aren't exactly known, but I doubt this is the last we'll see of Lut. Lyra Dawnbreaker is the leader of the Order of Dawn, carrying forward the legacy of Raya Dawnbreaker, who gave her life defending Benalia during the Phyrexian invasion. No, not that one. Yeah, that one, on Dominario, many years before. Lyra, as a character, is unafraid to involve herself in Benalish politics, brushing off criticism with a focus on duty over decorum. Years later, Lyra's leadership extended beyond Benalia, uniting the remaining Serens and brokering peace with the merchant nation of Orvada. Born of Yavamaya's wild heart and tied to the shadowed depths of Urborg, Muldrotha, like an extension of these dark lands themselves, is feral, unrelenting, and oozing in decay. When Slimefoot and the spirits of Urborg called on her aid, she turned her wrath against Yargul, helping the Weatherlight crew subdue the hulking menace. Later, during New Phyrexia's invasion, Muldrotha's care for her world extended even to her former foe. Seeing Yargul fighting tooth and nail against the invaders, she pleaded with her father Multani to intervene. Her words moved him to bind his strength to Yargul, granting the beast the resilience needed to continue the battle against the Phyrexian corruption. During the Kami War, as Okagachi's rage tore at the boundaries of Kamigawa, the Myojin of Knight's Reach discovered her power to slip between planes. When Okagachi's victory seemed certain, Knight's Reach sought to prolong the conflict, valuing her newfound freedom over peace. She struck a deal with the rogue Toshiro Umezawa, granting him the power to defeat his enemies in exchange for his service. Her plan was to keep that which was taken from Okagachi's grasp, but Toshi, ever cunning, gave it to Michiko Kanda instead, ending the war. Furious at this act, Knight's Reach blinded Toshi and exiled him to Dominaria, where his bloodline would eventually lead to Tetsuo Umezawa's defeat of Nicol Bolas. Later, Bolas, reborn and vengeful, hunted the Myosian, blaming her for his defeat, destroying her domains and scattering her followers. Though she fled, leaving behind her porcelain mask, her fate still remains a mystery. Unlike the other Domini, Ovika wasn't born from the crafting of the spheres of New Phyrexia, but is instead much older, and came to be from the wreckage of Mirrodin. When Mirrodin was stripped bare to fuel the Phyrexian machine, Ovika took what remained and made it its own, piecing together a massive, grotesque form from the ruins. Its every jagged limb and watchful eye was deliberate, a body designed not just for survival but for omnipresence, so the Phyrexian could observe and tinker with the plane that fascinated it. Progenitus, the five-headed Hydra god and avatar of Alara's world soul, is the restless destruction at the heart of this plane given form. Legend tells of Progenitus unleashing 5 devastating storms: fire, flood, quake, wind, and void, to erase the world it had grown weary of. It was only through the bravery of a young elf armed with little more than poison, a thorn-carved dagger, and sheer audacity that the plane was spared. Though saved from total destruction, Alara was then splintered into its 5 shards. Slumbering beneath Naya's soil, Progenitus would stir once more, shaking the very lands, causing mass destruction. And so, to appease the god, the elves would make sacrifices, hoping to stave off the Hydra's destruction once more. But eventually, when the conflux brought the splintered Alara back together, the god would finally be truly awakened once more. Ramos, the mechanical titan, began its journey as a servant of Mishra during the Brothers' War, only to be captured and reprogrammed by Urza to safeguard the people of Terrasar. When the Silex blast threatened all life, Ramos plane shifted to Phyrexia with a group of humans and merfolk, eventually escaping to Mercadia. His arrival brought with it destruction, as the mechanical beast crashed into the city, inadvertently causing devastation. But the survivors flourished under what was left, building civilizations and revering Ramos as a god. Millennia later, when the Weatherlight crashed on Mercadia, its crew uncovered the truth behind Ramos's myth, learning of its connection to the old legends through the 5 power stones that contained its essence. Offering these stones freely, Ramos aided their mission and later intervened to destroy Valrath's ship. Even as ages passed, Ramos remained as a protector of his new home, fighting to defend Mercadia during the New Phyrexian invasion. Ruby grew up in the shadow of Edgewall Keep, raised by her brother Peter in their secluded cabin. When Peter disappeared, she crossed paths with Kellen, who sought a witch in Dunbarrow while Ruby searched for her brother. Their journey led them to Agatha's cabin, where Kellen defeated the witch by plunging her into her own cauldron, freeing the captive knight Imodane and lifting the curse on the fearsome wolf knight, revealed to be Peter himself. With newfound allies, Ruby and Kellen ascended a beanstalk, guided by the Vidalcan Troyan. Ruby, ever determined, carried Kellen, who had been stricken by the wicked slumber, all the way to Hilda's gates, where her plea for mercy convinced the witch to revive him. Hilda gifted Ruby a sword and shared vital truths about the curse before relinquishing her crown. Tasked by Talion to confront Eret at Castle Ardenvale, the pair were captured by Rowan Kenrith, but escaped amid Will Kenrith's assault. In the chaos, Kellen aided Will in subduing Ashiok, paving the way for Ariat's capture, even though Rowan slipped through their grasp. Surak's legend began with a bear, a mighty beast he defeated with his bare hands, earning the title of Dragonclaw and cementing his place as Temir's first father. Later, when Sultai interlopers threatened his clan, Surak stood firm alongside his people and the very bear he once bested. But when the creature was felled by a poisoned arrow, Surak honored its spirit by donning its pelt, a symbol of unity between man, beast, and clan. In the timeline of the Atarka, Surak never rose as Khan, but became the Hunt Caller, leading hunts to satisfy the ever-hungry Dragon Lord. His defiance shone brightest when he slew an interfering dragon, one of Atarka's own, and earned her respect by devouring it, proving strength was the only law she cared about. Even when the multiverse fell under Phyrexian siege, Suruk, alongside Goreclaw, met the invaders with ferocity. Syr Alin, a Knight of Ardenvale, is a man built of the same unwavering loyalty that defines his order. In Ardenvale, a knight's triumph is never theirs alone. Every victory belongs to the court, a testament to their shared bond over individual pride. Fierce on the battlefield, their strength lies in unity, seldom venturing alone and never abandoning a comrade in peril. Tatiova, a druid shaped by the rhythms of both sea and forest, began her journey in the depths of the Voda Sea, but sought the wisdom of Yavamaya's ancient trees to deepen her connection to nature's magic. Among the elves, she honed her craft, blending the ebb and flow of tides with the steadfastness of the woodland. Returning to Vodalia, she now stands as a voice of balance. Tinybones never set out to be a troublemaker, but life in Urborg isn't easy to a skeleton with a hungry family to feed. Though he steals to survive, there's a mischievous glint in his eye that suggests he doesn't mind being a nuisance now and then. His exploits eventually caught the attention of Oko, who recruited him for a daring heist on Thunder Junction. Tinybones slipped through traps and schemes with his knack for mischief. Alongside Oko, he braved the legendary vault of Mog Tirano, outwitting traps and guards alike, though not without losing his beloved hat. When the dust settled, it was Rakdos who saw a kindred spark in the scrappy skeleton, whisking him away for yet another wild adventure. Zagana, once the stately prime speaker of the Simic Combine, was a figure of quiet resilience and measured influence on Ravnica. After issuing the Fathom Edict to rebuild the Simic following Momir Vig's downfall, her tenure ended when the more radical Vannifar ousted her, prompting Zagana to retreat to Zonot 1. From there, she became a vocal advocate for the Utopian faction, opposing Vannifar's aggressive adaptationist agenda, while rallying her followers with a steady hand. During the Phyrexian invasion, old rivalries thawed as Zagana and Vannifar collaborated to study the oil, hoping to find a cure. However, Zagana's measured descent against the Combine's increasingly reckless experiments marked her as a target. She was tragically assassinated during a guild celebration. The truth unraveled later on. It turned out her work with the Phyrexian oil had been misunderstood, and her death was orchestrated by a mind-controlled Trada. When the golden city of Varazka rose from the depths, it awakened the mighty elder dinosaurs, guardians of the land's ancient magic. Zetalpa, a towering pteranodon, embodies the searing brilliance of the sun. Jace and Vraska were there to witness her stirring from centuries of stasis, a moment of awe amid the city's resurgence. During the Phyrexian invasion, Zetalpa clashed with the completed Etali in a brutal skybound battle. Zetalpa retreated, bleeding but unbroken, her resilience a beacon of the strength woven into Ixalan's bones. Zul Ashur has long lingered in the shadows of flavor text, her name a dark whisper in the ears of dead or nearly there. But now we finally see the warlock brought to life in Foundations. But really, that's all we got. That's why I will leave you with the flavor text that I think best describes who this character is. Die, but die knowing that your pathetic life will yield a great bounty for me. Well, I hope you enjoyed this look at some of the lesser known legends of Magic Foundations. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know which character or creature was your favorite. And with that, friends, I will catch you in the multiverse. Bye.